first, can you tell us what's RILSO?
Well, RILSO, thank you, Fleet, for having me here today. I'm very excited to be here. And the RILSO is the Region Legal Service Office, and we provide legal services for our dependents and our DoD civilians, and of course retirees and active duty service members.
Okay, so when you talk about services, when you talk about the RILSO services that you offer to the group you just mentioned, active duty, reserve, family members, DoD civilians and their family members, what kind of services are there? I mean, when I walk into RILSO, what can I get from you?
Well, for us, our primary and our huge service is our legal assistance mission, which is very huge. We provide assistance with wills, family law, consumer law, powers of attorney, notary services. We have an attorney that comes once a week where we provide Italian law legal assistance.
Oh, wow.
As well as claims. We will also review agreements, contracts, so that if the service member or their families or DoD civilians, they don't understand it, we will help them to understand it. Although we don't give advice, we just make sure that the verbiage in the contract is accurate and correct.
So, okay, let's talk now about being overseas, and here we are in Italy. And we have the SOFA agreement, which is the Status of Forces Agreement. And it talks about the status of forces and how we operate as a military unit in our dependents, working here in a military capacity and having to also follow the local laws. So it's not like we have immunity, because we're on a military installation and wearing, the uniform of a military member. So we still have to follow our host national laws, right?
Yes, we do.
Okay, so what happens with what's in the SOFA agreement and what do we need to know about it? Not the specific laws, but...
Well, first, the laws apply to everyone. So the members of the armed forces, our civilians working here, our civilian contractors, and of course our dependents. So it applies to everyone. And the main reason that everyone should, become familiar with the SOFA and Italian laws is because we frequent this area. Everyone travels. And if there's ever an incident with Italian authorities, you must kind of you should have a little bit of knowledge about it. Now, we cover it in our area orientation brief. And we're more than willing to have you come over to our legal assistance office if you have any questions and we discuss it more. And we also have, like I said, an Italian attorney there to help if you do encounter an incident with Italian authorities.
So while you're overseas legally, and you're legally bound to also obey the host nation laws, and if you are encountering authorities in your host nation, it's also important to have the phone numbers for your military translators, your assistants, and so forth. So we have, each base has their business card size, phone numbers. So for every sailor, for every dependent civilian out there, I would encourage them to make sure they have that card on their person when they're traveling as well. So if they do encounter legal authorities or have some questions while they're out in town, they have that resource to call back to. Surveys are critical, and so even if you get a survey this week and then a different survey next week, it's critical that every time you receive a survey request to participate in, that you participate. Because without the survey, we don't hear your voice. Nope. And we're out in the field and we're out on travel and we'll do all hands calls, and for us in the Navy, a sailor may say, well, how does this policy change? Or why am I wearing this uniform? I wish somebody had asked me about it. And then we'll ask them, well, you received the survey, right? And, well, yeah, I received the survey. And so when we ask, well, what did you put on the survey? Did you put these kinds of things, that you're talking about? Well, I didn't do the survey. I didn't have time, or, I had other things to do, or I saw it in my mailbox and I meant to get to it, but I didn't do it. So if you're relying on other people in your branch of service to do that survey, then you are giving them your, opportunity to speak for you. And we see it all the time. When you are filling those surveys out, you are legally bound to be honest in that survey. So for a BAH or an OHA survey that comes out, and it says, put here how much you're paying for your power on average and what they're looking for, and they'll tell you in the survey, take your last 3 or your last 6 power bills and, take the average and put that in here. So I get feedback from a lot of sailors that will say, oh, I didn't fill out that survey because I didn't have my power bill, I didn't save it, or I'd have to go back and look online to see what I wrote for my checks and so forth. Well, you can do that. If that takes a little time to get the survey, you typically have 30 to 45 days. Then take that 4 or 5 days that you need, go back and look at your bank statements, go back and look at how you wrote a check or you were paying online. It's critical that you invest that time in you, but it's just as critical to know that you're investing the time in your shipmate. And those that have gone before us did the survey to make things better for us. If I could leave you with no other advice, always leave your service in better shape than what you received it in. And that doesn't mean you received it in bad shape, but it means that you should leave it in better shape, because people who came before us did. They took the surveys. So if only 11% of the Navy takes a survey, then the other 89% have given them permission to speak on their behalf. Don't wait for things to happen to you. Make them happen for you.